Hey everyone, how's it going? My name is Halden Rashid. I'm a Microsoft MVP, MCT, and founder of Powercademy. And in this video, we are going to be going over GitHub Copilot, particularly in VS Code and also the new desktop application. I really do think in 2026 and the years to come, when we live in an AI-assisted world and we're using everything for AI, being a software engineer or a developer or even a business owner, and being able to write your own code, I think is going to be one of the most important skills that you can have. Now, there's been a lot of argument if people should even learn code in the first place. Is learning coding languages dead? There's so much argument around this nowadays. And honestly, in terms of having an opinion on it, I think these coding models, things like Fable and the Opus models from Claude and Anthropic, are just becoming better and better. And when we talk about code, where there is almost a right answer in terms of best practices and the ways to do things, and things are a lot less ambiguous, I think we're coming more and more into a direction where actually learning and understanding syntax is becoming a lot easier to do with these AI-assisted tooling, but understanding the fundamentals are still very important. I suppose with all of this, what I'm trying to say is understanding the tooling to help you write good code, efficient code, and code faster than if you would do it manually is really, really important, and is going to continue to be important for the years to come. There is still a skill to be learned, even if it's not writing the code itself, understanding the capability that these tools provide and being able to connect the different moving blocks together to have one cohesive system that can help you operate both in your business and within your work. So without further ado, let's get started in the video and introducing GitHub Copilot as an application and as a tool. And then we're going to get into a live demo of how to use it and a tour of the interface so you can best understand what all the buttons are and what they do. So to start things off the bat, there are two main ways to use GitHub Copilot that I've identified. One is in VS Code, where you have that chat panel on the right-hand side and you can write with AI and iterate with AI. And I will draw the differences between the two as we kind of go through the video. But within VS Code, I've really found it as more of an AI assistant rather than an AI agent. And by that I mean you would tend to use GitHub Copilot within VS Code if, for whatever reason, you have a project that can only be iterated from within VS Code. For example, different tooling and plugins and capabilities available within there. Or if you need to actually look at the code that's being developed and have an iterative process to the way that you write that code. So you have GitHub Copilot assisting you while you write the code and while you make changes. So this is more of a collaborative experience where you write with AI. Then we have the GitHub Copilot app, which recently became generally available and recently rolled out to free users of GitHub Copilot as well. And I see this more as the delegation tool. It gives you all of the features and capabilities to delegate coding tasks to AI rather than iterating and writing with AI. So for me, these are the two main places to use GitHub Copilot, but I have a note here in the bottom right saying that you will also see GitHub Copilot popping up in Visual Studio and other Microsoft products, but these are the two main places that I've seen the most utilized in the ecosystem. Now, with most AI tools, GitHub Copilot is no different in terms of the functionality that it kind of offers, right? I would say the main difference is the fact that you have multiple coding models available to you, whereas if you use Codex or Claude, you have those set models available to you, but using GitHub Copilot, it kind of brings them all together. So you get the best of every world. But you get the 3 chat modes here available as well. That is also available within those coding assistant tools. So you can ask, where you can get a question answered. You have a plan where you think through something first and it generates a plan that you then approve. And then we have agent mode, which is kind of go and do it. So it's that true delegation available. We will be going through all 3 in this case, showing you the different cornerstones of how GitHub Copilot works. And I don't think there's a better way than doing that than going into the live demo. So let's get started. So the first thing you're going to need to do to have access to GitHub Copilot is, of course, create a GitHub account. So to do this, you can go into github.com here in the top and come into here, enter your email and sign up for GitHub. Once you've signed up for GitHub, there will be multiple areas available asking you to connect to GitHub Copilot as well. And if we click onto this, you can see that it's going to take me to a login screen. So once you have your logins, you can then access the trials and the environments for GitHub Copilot that is also available to you. You do not need a paid plan or card to start, and a free GitHub account is the only prerequisite of this. Once we have this built out, you want to open Visual Studio Code, where we're going to be exploring the first experience of GitHub Copilot. Now, if you've seen older tutorials, they're going to ask you to go to the marketplace and look for GitHub Copilot and install it. But now Copilot is built into Visual Studio Code, so there's no separate extension available. In order to open GitHub Copilot, what you want to do is trigger the side panel or the secondary sidebar by clicking onto this, and you should see the chat interface pop up, and if it doesn't, there will be something on your screen guiding you towards it. Now you can see I already have some existing sessions here. I also have Claude Code, which I've used in the past, but again, all the focus here is on GitHub Copilot. So where you see this chat interface, this is where you have access to the native GitHub Copilot experience. You can see multiple options available here, such as the agent mode, and here comes the ask and the plan mode that we went through. And if I go into auto here, you can select the auto model, which will basically choose the best model for the job. And you can see over here, you get a 10% discount for that. You also have the Claude models and you have the GPT models available to you. And if I go into other models, you can see all of the other models that are also available. So things like the MAI Code 1 Flash, which is Microsoft's in-house model. What we're going to do is we're going to build a habit tracker application. And the first place we want to start is GitHub on the web, because we want to build a repository where basically all of our files and all of our code will go. So this is always the first step when initializing a project within Claude Code or GitHub Copilot in this case. So now I am in github.com and I am in the repository area. And what I'm going to do is go into new. And then from here, I can create a repository, which again is a folder for all of my code files. I'm going to give this a name and just call it Habit Tracker version 2. We're not going to give it a description. We're going to make myself the owner. We're going to make this a private repository. We're going to leave the README as off. And we're going to go ahead and just create this. Once this is created, you'll be taken to this screen, and this allows GitHub Copilot or our coding agent to have somewhere to write the coding files to. Once we've got the repository built, what I would recommend is cloning the repository on your local machine, so then GitHub Copilot has access to it. And it can develop on your local machine and then commit into GitHub once it's finished. So the way that we do this is we go into Visual Studio Code and we press Control, Shift, and P. Once this command palette has showed up, we are going to type in git, and then clone. We're going to press enter. We're going to press clone from GitHub. If you're not authenticated, it will authenticate you. We will then click the Habit Tracker version 2, and it will then ask us where we want to clone the repository. So in this case, we're just going to select the default place, select this as a repository destination. It will ask us if we want to open it, and we'll select open. And we can see on the left-hand side, we now have the Habit Tracker open over here. From this point, we have free reign to basically start collaborating with AI and building our ideas within our folder. So the first thing we want to do and the place we want to start with is using this chat panel on the right-hand side and pasting a prompt that we have in here for the Habit Tracker web application. We have different features available, a current streak per habit, and the different files that it should create. We're going to select the auto model to save costs. We're going to select the agent mode so it can kind of take the reins and not ask me for a lot of input. And then we're just going to go ahead and press enter. Now what it's going to go ahead and do is work within the Habit Tracker folder and start building our files. You can see it's routed to the 5.3 GPT Codex model. It's gone and scaffolded those files for us. And we're just going to wait for this to finish as it builds us the habit tracking application. As it iterates in the folder, we can see the code that it's actually generated. So we've got the JavaScript file, we've got the HTML, and we can go ahead and open these to see the changes that it's committed. It's then told us that this is finished, and then we can go ahead and take a look at what it's built. So I'm just going to go ahead and ask it, how can I see what you've built? And here we're really showing the power of maybe not understanding Visual Studio Code or understanding programming fundamentals, but straight away you can see it's given us guidance on what we need to do. So it said that we can use the terminal from the repo folder. So what we can go ahead and do is copy this. We're going to pull out the terminal. So we're just going to click and drag the bottom and pull this up. Make sure we're in our folder, and we're going to run startindex.html. And you can see immediately we have access to the habit tracker. We can come into here, type in a habit, so gym, add the habit, and we can mark this as done or mark this as not done. So very simple application that we can now test. And that was all built from within Visual Studio Code. Now, if we go back into Visual Studio Code, something you might notice in the top right-hand corner of your screen is this open in agents mode. Now, I want to take you through this because it can cause some confusion in terms of where the editing and where to utilize GitHub Copilot best should be taking place. But if we click onto this, you can see it's opening up a complete new pane. Now, if there's some confusion in terms of what you're seeing, because you see a lot of similar functionality and maybe some more functionality than you would see within this side pane in Visual Studio Code. Now, the main difference between this agent view is the chat is a code-first experience and is tied to one workspace, whereas this agents window is an agent-first experience and it spans all of your repos and runs sessions in parallel. You can see over here, I can select the folder that I want to write code in. I can select the different models, so Copilot or Claude, so we're just going to select Copilot in this case. And you can see I have all of these customization features also available to me. Things like agents, skills, instructions, hooks, MCP servers, plugins, and tools as well. Now, let's say hypothetically we want to add another feature. The truth is we can do it through here and we'd have a much more structured experience than we would within the Visual Studio Code tab. Now, the truth of the matter is we now have GitHub Copilot Desktop available to us. And I think it does achieve a lot of the same functionality that this agents view does as well. So what I wanted to do is just highlight that this is available to you so it doesn't confuse you, but we're basically going to be just using the same functionality available within here, but within the GitHub Copilot app itself. I have yet to see any core differences other than the fact that this is natively available within Visual Studio Code, so it kind of meets you where you work. But if you learn this, it's easy to learn GitHub Copilot Desktop and vice versa, which is why I'm going to show you the other experience rather than this one. We're going to cross out of this for now, and I do want to show you another functionality available over here, and these are your slash commands. And if you're used to Claude Code, you'd be used to slash commands as well. But basically, if I click slash, you can see I get these list of commands available to me. Depending on the types of plugins and extensions I have available, you can see over here, they're highlighted. So for example, these are Azure plugins, testing, VS Code, terminal as well. And you can see if I scroll down, there are many different slash commands available. What these slash commands do is they allow you to narrow the agent's focus in terms of what it's doing or explaining. So if we scroll up to the top, you can see we have explain over here. So if we go to slash explain, and then we ask it a question, right? So explain how these streaks are captured and remembered. And now we've narrowed the functionality so it knows it doesn't need to actually go and write any code, but it needs to explain to us how something works, right? So using slash commands can be really valuable if you have a specific idea or task in mind and you want it to focus the agent's actions. Using slash commands can also save you quite a lot of tokens because again, it does narrow what the agent can do. So it's always best practice to understand the ones that are available to you. But if we press enter here and just let this evaluate, and you can see it's asking us in particular what range we want it to explain. Let's say we want it to explain the toggle habit for today area. It's going to search for any relevant references to that. And it's basically taken us step by step on how this stores. And if we click on these different interactive elements, it takes us to the exact areas within the code. So we can understand this a lot further. And I always think it's best practice to not just write code with AI, but actually go in and get it to explain things to you that you might not understand or you may have done differently and understand why it's actually taken that approach. So this is GitHub Copilot within Visual Studio Code. But now I want to introduce GitHub Copilot desktop application so you can see the differences and what's available to you. So we're going to go ahead and open up the application here. And you can see if you've used something like Claude Code or a native AI tooling, you have a very similar experience, right? You have your tab here on the left-hand side with different areas like automations and search and the chats. You have your settings, and over here in your main pane, you have a conversation window to actually communicate and collaborate with AI. Now, something I forgot to do within Visual Studio Code is just commit my changes from my local machine into the cloud so I can then access it from within GitHub Copilot Desktop. So what I want to do is I want to just come into the chat interface here and say, please commit these files to the GitHub repo. Press enter, and we're going to let it do that. You can see it's asking us to run a command. It's making sure we're authenticated, and we're just going to go ahead and allow these different commands until it goes in. It's going to make sure GitHub Remote is configured. It's set. We're going to press allow. And if it's not configured or you're missing any prerequisites, it'll actually take you step by step. So now we've got that configured. If we go back into GitHub and we just refresh the screen, you can see we have all of those files now available, which have been committed. So we've now taken the local files and committed it to the cloud. So now within GitHub Copilot Desktop, I can then reach into that repo and start collaborating on it. So what we're looking for is Habit Tracker version 2. So we're going to go into the new over here. We're going to go into GitHub repo, and then we're going to type in Habit Tracker, and we've got version 2 over here. You can see it's cloning the repo, and we now have access to start iterating on that repo through the chat interface. So let's say we want another feature. We want to add a weekly view for each habit, showing the last 7 days as a row of 7 boxes and filled if completed that day. So you can see we have different features available here. We have interactive, which is step-by-step collaboration. We have plan, and then we also have autopilot. which has that end-to-end execution layer, which we will get excited about. So let's go Autopilot here. You can see we have the model option available here as well. We're just going to use the MAI Code 1 Flash. And you can see I can also dictate the effort level that's available. And then I can go ahead and press enter and let it go and build that for me. You can see once this is added, I have a lot of different options available, like opening within VS Code if I want to make any subtle changes. And if I click on this ellipsis, you can see I can also open within the terminal, within Visual Studio, within PowerShell, and also a lot more places if I want to add applications here. I can also press run, which allows me to run this application locally. And I can see the exact code changes that it's making by clicking on these different areas and seeing what's been adjusted. It's now told me that the 7-day completion grid has been added and I got a notification. So now I can go ahead and press run. And then I can go ahead and ask it, how can I see the application? We type that in. It should give me a link to the local host where we can run the application. It's building, it's launching the local server. You can see it's given us the link and we can go ahead and click on this. And now it's opened up on the right-hand side. And if I go ahead and add a habit, you can see we have this view that's now available. And if I mark something as done, you can see that this then adds up. So that's been added really nicely for us. What I want to show you is the parallel development that's available here as well. So if I go ahead and go new and I start a session within this folder, I can go ahead and create some more functionality like a dark mode toggle that remembers the user choice, press send, and then I can go back and start making changes to this as well. So this is the real value of making changes within the GitHub Copilot desktop application. You can have multiple strings of code going on, and you can iterate and check them all within one session. If I go ahead and just minimize this a little bit, what this should be doing is implementing that dark mode for us. And we're just going to wait for that to finish. And if I wanted to make any changes, I can go ahead and do it within this chat. And you can see it's remembered my settings from here. Another layer that I want to go a little bit deeper into that I promised because we went through the agents pane within Visual Studio Code. We saw all of those different tabs available like skills and instructions. And that's all available within this application too. And the way that we get there is we go into settings here in the bottom left corner. And you can see over here, this middle section gives you the extension capabilities available within GitHub Copilot. Skills, you're probably familiar with these if you've used something like Claude, but these are basically repeated context and instructions that GitHub Copilot can call on when it needs to. These can be inherited from plugins, or these can be custom built by yourself and also imported. And then we have the context of MCP servers, which basically allow agents to go in and interact with different applications like Azure, like DevOps. And you can see we have almost 36 MCP servers available here, and we can also add custom MCP servers using this functionality here as well. We've got plugins, which allow us to basically install different plugins from different marketplaces. So for example, if you're in the Power Platform space and you want to install some of the new Power Automate plugins to help you build Power Automate flows and solutions, you can go ahead and do that from here. You basically type in the plugin marketplace and you go ahead and install it from this interface. And then we have model providers available here too, which allows you to bring your own model providers with your API keys. So whether that's something like Microsoft Foundry or Ollama, this is all available to you within the model providers area. So right now we are going to go ahead and close the loop and send these changes into the cloud by creating PRs over here. Now what we're going to go ahead and do is click onto this. You can see it's creating the PR for us. It's now committing to the cloud, and we can go ahead and do the same with the dark mode functionality here too, and it will go and do the same thing. And what this does is it makes sure that the version that we have on our local machine is aligning with the version that we have in the cloud. So once this is finished, what we should be able to do is go into GitHub. You can see it has recent pushes. We can go ahead and refresh, and the changes will be available here. Once it's been committed to GitHub, we can then merge, which means we're actually sending those changes into the main repository. And we can actually automate that by clicking on this button here. And it will then allow this different areas, including merging the pull request. Of course, this is done at your own risk, but if you're looking for a true agentic experience, this would be it. Then we can go ahead and click on agent merge and go into merge pull request. And you can see that that's been done when this goes purple. And if we go into here, we can go ahead and do the same thing. These have now been merged, and if we go into GitHub, we can refresh the screen, and you can see the merge pull requests have been completed now, committing our updates into GitHub. You also have different areas here available, like automations, which basically allow you to run automations on your code bases. So here are some different examples, like a weekly performance improvement. So based on usage, what it will do is actually go and identify within your code base different performance areas, which can do with some work, and go ahead and merge and deploy those functionalities for you. So you can go ahead and build automations here to start to start building on your code base and making that better without you having any input on that. So that was a quick introduction to GitHub Copilot within Visual Studio Code and also the new desktop application. Again, just to recap what I said at the beginning, I really do think understanding these skills, whether you work in software engineering or within the Microsoft space in the Power Platform or Copilot Studio world, these skills will become essential eventually if they're not already. So I highly recommend picking up your tool of choice, whether it is GitHub Copilot or Claude Code, and start iterating and building on these functionalities as they come out. But as always, I'm curious what you think about these tools, and if you've made anything cool with these tools yourself, please leave them in the comments, because I'm always looking for inspiration of things that I can do to improve my life and improve my working life as well. If you're watching this and thinking you want to upskill yourself in the Microsoft Power Platform or Microsoft AI space, that's exactly what we do at Powercademy. There is a link at the top of the description for you to go and hit, and that will take you on our website where we have courses and programs and all sorts available to you so you can upskill yourself and make yourself truly indispensable in the age of AI. But anyway, thank you so much for tuning into this video. If you liked it, leave a like and share it with someone who you think would benefit from this. And yeah, thank you very much. Take it easy.